Hello and welcome back to Minding Her Business. Thank you again for joining me today. If you haven't watched the first episode or you don't know my face, my name is Maya Mobbs. I am 19 years old and I have worked in the mining industry since I was 17. So, last episode we talked about me, my work history and my life pretty much, just getting to know me a little bit more. So today we're getting into the mining side of things. So today I'm going to be talking about, is mining the right industry for you? So I want to kind of just get straight into it, talk about what mining is and how it works and what you need to get into mining. So yesterday I talked a little bit about why I started this podcast. And something that I actually forgot to mention is with my TikToks that I've posted about mining and how I have been in it since I was 17 and I have gotten an overwhelming amount of messages asking how to get into it. So that's another reason that I wanted to start this. And even since recording yesterday, I haven't even posted it yet. I have been getting so many messages and it's insane. So I decided, like I did say yesterday, I decided that I wanted to record this and post this at the same time I'm posting my first episode so I can get straight into how I got into mining more in depth and how you can get into mining and what you need. So I kind of just wanted to start with saying that mining is so dangerous. And I think that's why it is so hard to get into mining in today's day and age. Mining is so hard to get into. For me personally, it took me a year to get into the mines. It took a long time. So I think I just want to preface by saying, don't feel set back if you don't get accepted straight away, because it's normal. And some people will be like, oh, I got into mining straight away. Some people, yes, but for the majority amount of the population that are in mining, it is so hard to get into it, so hard. And like I said, me and my partner took a year to get into mining. So he actually had worked in refineries beforehand, whereas I didn't. So, you'd think he would have a bit more of a step ahead than me. But we both took a year to actually get into mining. So I just want to start by saying that it is so hard to get into. So don't lose hope, don't stop trying. It is hard. Just keep doing everything that you can and everything that I say in this video and this episode to help you get into it, because you will get into it eventually. Just don't feel set back if you're not getting into it straight away. But in saying that, we'll get started. So like I said, mining is very dangerous. So here's a little fact. Between 2007 and 2016, 81 coal mine workers died in relation to work-related injuries. So I want to just say that, not to scare people away or be like, oh God, maybe I don't want to do it, but just to preface the fact that it is dangerous. And that is underground mining, open cut mining, everything. Mining is dangerous in a whole. It is very dangerous. It is very scary. It is very scary for having family that work in mining, not knowing if they're going to come home the next week. But I do want to preface that, safety is a very, very, very big thing in mining, and it's very important to keep in mind when applying that, is mining the right industry for you. So I do just want to say that and point that out, but this is just a little fact I found on Google. I'm not saying it's on one coal mine. It is coal mines across Australia. So apart from that, we'll get into it. So I just also want to touch on the fact of being a woman in mining. Women are being screened for in mining, but it is still hard. And being a woman in mining is, it is still hard in today's day and age. I think a lot of people don't understand that mining is still very much male dominated, and it will be for a long time. Yes, there is more women in the industry, but that doesn't mean that it's still not male dominated. Mining and even refineries, civil, everything is still male dominated, and it will be for a long time. So being a woman in a male dominated industry isn't just about proving yourself, it's about navigating a world that wasn't necessarily made for you. And I think I want to point that out as well, because it's so true. Mining is not just about, for women, it's not just about walking in and proving that you can be there. It's about navigating the fact that the world and this job is not necessarily made for a woman, because that's just the facts. I have walked into many jobs, all of my jobs, and, them saying, you're in a man's world now. And I take no offense to it, because I am. I've chosen to walk into a man's world. I've chosen to walk into this industry that was not made for a woman. And I think that's very important to keep in mind when you're walking into the role, that it is not made for women. It is made for a man's industry. And I'm not sure that how many people will agree with me on that, but I am more just talking on the facts. I had to accept it. Like when I first started, I had no idea what I was walking into. I was walking in being like, yeah, like I can do this, like it's fine, like there's so many women in mining now. There's not. Like, I don't know if I said it in my last episode, but I've only ever worked with 3 girls in my 2 years, almost 2 years of working in the industry, which I understand is not a long time to work in the industry already, but 3 women is also not a lot. And 2 of those women only lasted, one of them lasted 1 swing, one of them lasted 2 swings, and the other one, she lasted for a while. Like, she was good. She stayed there for a while, but she was a rigger, so she wasn't really, and I was a TA, so we didn't really work side by side, but we worked on the same crew type of thing. So yeah, I think it's important to understand, walking in as a woman, you need to understand that you are going to cop shit, okay? You are going to cop a lot of shit. You're going to cop a lot of men that don't agree with it. Like, I have dealt with a lot of men that haven't agreed with it before. But I also worked with a lot of men that wanted to advertise it and loved women in mining. They wanted more women in mining, but you know, there is 2 different sides. Like, I have worked with both sides. So that's another important thing to keep in mind, that if you want to step into mining, you also have to come to terms with the fact that it is still a man's world, and it is still going to take time to adjust, and there's still men out there that don't like women in mining. Like I said, I have dealt with it personally, but as we go along, like, I'll talk about how I dealt with it and how you can deal with it too. But I think it's more of just come to terms with the fact that you don't have to accept it, you don't have to be okay with it. Come to terms with the fact that it is going to happen, and it might not happen straight away, but it'll happen. Unfortunately, that is just how it is and how it works in today's day and age. So yeah, I just wanted to start off by saying that and just pointing out the fact that, you know, you need to really keep in mind that you have to have very tough skin going into a male dominated industry. You have to have tough skin. You have to learn how to put some jokes aside and understand that they're not used to working with girls. So like, I have had men that have made weird comments and, you know, say things that it's kind of just like, okay, well, you don't need to say that. And then I would tell someone and they're just like, okay, but you also have to understand that they're not used to working with women. Okay, ending on that, we'll go straight into what I'm going to talk about today, the main point of this whole episode. So what actually is the mining industry? I'm not sure if many people really understand how mining works, so I do want to kind of just talk about that briefly as well. Like, I'm not going to go into deep detail because I honestly even have so much to learn about the whole industry, and, you know, I don't know everything, but I'll do a brief explanation of what mining actually is. So if you don't actually know what mining is, the mining industry is a process of extracting, processing, and managing minerals. So like, there's so much with mining. So there's surface mining, so there's open cut mining, and there's underground mining. So open cut mining is the process of like a ground, so you've got just like normal land and they have a blast, so they blow it up pretty much. They blow it up if there's coal there, which there's a whole other process of how they find coal. But if they know there's coal somewhere, they do a blast, they blow it all up, and then they use the coal that's there and then go on from that. So they do that, and underground mining is digging in tunnels. So as much as what you could imagine what it is pretty much what it is. So they're in tunnels and they're just digging it all. But underground mining is a whole different process to open cut. So I can't even talk on that because I'm very uneducated on underground mining, which I might get more educated as like the days go on, but I have zero experience in even the thought of underground mining. It is completely different. But like I've said in my last episode, if you don't know, I do work on an open cut coal mine. I don't work in the open cut experience. I'm not in the process of the pit, taking the coal out of the pit, hauling that to process it. So I'm actually in, I guess you could call it, in the rehab like process. So what happens in open cut coal mining, so like I said before, they do all their process there, and then once they're done with it, they have to pretty much put the land back. So under the Mining Legislation Act, you have to open a pit, you dig it, you do whatever you need to do, you get the coal out, but once you're done, you actually have to put it back pretty much as how it was. So that is called rehabilitation. So what happens there is they take reject, which is actually called something else. There is different ways to call it. Coal tailings, also known as reject. So it's pretty much just bad coal. So like, when the coal gets processed, it goes through wash plants, gets washed. There's a whole different process there, but there is bad coal, which is rejects or coal tailings. So you take that for my mine site, and you take that and you put it in the pits and then you rehab it. So I'm a part of the process taking the bad coal and filling in the pits. So I'm not actually in the production itself, but I'm in the process before rehab. So I get the pits ready for rehab pretty much. And then rehab is a whole other thing itself. So it's soil, everything. So we fill the pits, we lift it, we cap it. So that's what capping is. So we cap the pits, so filling it in and lift it until it's where it needs to be. And then from there, we leave. We don't touch it again. We go to a different pit to fill it up, and a team comes in to rehab it, and they make it pretty much just look like pretty grass and trees again. So that's pretty much what the process is of my job in a nutshell. So that's what I do, and that's pretty much what coal is. So, but coal mining is so many different things. Like, coal mining can be so many different things. So coal mining can produce coal, diamonds, oil. There's gold, platinum, silver. There can be steel, copper, aluminum, limestone, chalk, and gravel. So there is so much that can come from coal mining, not just coal, which is insane. So mining, so from where I work, we make steel coal. So we make coal that actually then produces into steel. But there's also different coal mines that make coal that can power our electricity. So they go to power plants. So there's different coal mines around Australia that produce so many different things, but there is so much to it. I can't even begin to explain how much there is to it, because again, I don't even understand to the extent that it is. But so we make steel coal where I am, so that gets made into steel, and then that process there, and then there's steam coal. There's so much to it. But anyways, if I get onto it, I probably will never stop. So moving on from that, I also kind of want to just explain the difference between mining and civil. So if you don't know the difference between mining and civil, like I just explained before, that is mining, so taking minerals from the earth and processing that. Whereas civil is civil construction, so you're building things. So you're building things like roads, bridges, water systems, everything. So it's civil engineering, and so they're two completely different things. So I personally, like I said in my last episode, if you didn't watch it, I have never worked in civil myself. Civil can be a lot more interesting because you're building a lot of things, whereas coal mining is just you're moving coal or you're rehabbing or anything. You can also do civil mining, so you can do civil contracts on a mine site. So yeah, this difference between mining and civil is there's digging and then there's building, pretty much. To put it as simple as I can, as digging and then there's building. So yeah, I've never worked in civil. I would love to work in civil one day, because I know that it can be so interesting to, watch the process of being nothing to being a building, pretty much. So yeah, I've explained what surface mining and underground mining is, what mining can be, and also while we're on the whole coal mining in general topic, there is so many coal mines in Australia. It is insane. But a little fun fact, which is very interesting, the coal mine that makes the most coal in Australia per annum, which is per year, is the Loy Yang mine in Victoria. So they produce 25.6 million tonnes of coal per year, which is insane. So to point it to a perspective, the mine that I'm at now, they have the room to produce 11 million tonnes per year, but last year we produced 4 million tonnes. So just to put that in a little bit of perspective, this mine has produced so much coal. This was 2023, so this is 2 years ago. But yeah, so insane. Just the numbers and the facts, they're all pretty crazy. I really enjoy looking into it. So yeah, if you ever want to look into it, there's so much online that you can have access to. And then coal mining. So I looked up today, actually, I didn't even have this planned in today, but I looked it up today that the coal production by country, so the country that makes the most coal, the number one country is China, and they produce 3 billion tonnes of coal per year. So that's by country, that's not by just like a site, that's by country. And then number 2 is India. They produce 761 trillion. Then the United States, they produce 728 trillion. And then Australia is number 4 with 554 trillion, 763 million, 962,900 tons of coal. Insane. Okay, just crazy. These are probably very boring facts, but I find them very interesting and I love looking at them. But speaking of that, we'll get back into what I actually want to talk about today, which is how to get into the mining industry. So a lot of people ask me for advice of how to get into mining, how I got into mining, what you need to get. My biggest advice is getting all your tickets, but we'll get into that. So I'm just going to start with get in any way you can, which I'm not sure if a lot of people understand. You have to start from the bottom. Pretty much the best way I can explain it is you have to start from the bottom. So you can't just walk in and be like, oh yeah, I want to get in machines, or I want to just, do this straight. I want to be a rigger. Like, you need to do your training. You need to start from the bottom. So if you want to go in and you don't really understand to a whole what you want to do, so if you want to be in a trade or you want to be a rigger or whatever, my biggest piece of advice is starting as a TA. Because I started as a TA and that really showed me what I wanted to do, because I was working with tradesmen. So I was working with boilermakers, I was working with scaffolders, with fitters, everything. So working beside them, I got to really see what they do for a job, and that really gave me a really good idea of what I want to do. So, but TAing is a really good way to actually get into the mine sites anyways, because you don't really need experience to be a TA. So if you don't know, a TA is a trade assistant, so you're assisting the tradesmen. So all you're doing is basically the jobs they don't want to do, and you're helping them. You're passing them tools, and if they tell you to go get water, you go get them water. So you're literally an assistant for a tradesman, pretty much. So it is a very, very, very easy job. It is such a good way to get started. You do not need experience to it, because your tradesman will teach you what you need to know, pretty much. There is some sites and some jobs that prefer experience for a TA, because that's just how the world works, I guess. But trade assistant is the easiest way to get in, and that's how me and my partner both got into mining together, was being a TA. And we were a TA for, I'm pretty sure it was 8 months. I think that's what I said. 8 months before we got into operating, but I did explain that on my last episode. So if you want to know, and you haven't watched it, about my work history, that I said that in my first episode. So aside from TA, cleaning, and I know how much it sucks, like, to be like, oh, like, I'm a cleaner, but getting into a mine site any way you can is amazing. Like, getting in as a cleaner, perfect, because that means you've got your foot in the door and you have been on a mine site. That's what a lot of companies look for in coal mining, is the fact that you've been on a mine site. Not that you did this and did that, it's that you've been on a mine site and you understand how it works. So cleaning is another awesome way to get it. All you do is you cruise around in a ute and you go and clean the crib rooms and the toilets, which is not, it's not the easiest job in the world, but it's a good way to get in. You go and you wipe the tables down, you sweep and you mop the floors and everything. Like, I was looking at doing that before, like, while I was also looking at a TA, because, like I said, any way to get in is a good way to get it in. And once you're in, you've got your foot in the door, that's all that matters. So TA and cleaning, best way to get in. I would very much highly advise either one of those roles. So we'll move on to what you need to become a TA. So I'm going to be talking again on my experience, which is a TA. So we'll talk on how to become a TA, not necessarily a cleaner, because I did not end up doing that role. So what do you need to be a TA? A white card. So if you don't know what a white card is, it is a construction induction card saying that you know how to work safely in the industry. So that's pretty much all that is. It's just like this little course that tells you what the basic rules and legislations are to work on site. So a white card is actually good for any on site. So refineries, coal mines, everything. So a white card is for everything. And then we come down to a Stand 11. So a Stand 11 is mine site specific. So you actually don't need a Stand 11 for refineries. But like I said, this whole podcast is about mining. So Stand 11 is actually for mining. So it is pretty much the same thing, but in more depth for mining specific. So I'll tell you what Stand 11 includes. A Standard 11 includes an introduction to coal mining legislation, fitness for work and behaviours, risk management, health and safety, emergency awareness, initial response to first aid, and equipment safety. So that's pretty much everything that's in that, which is very, very, very good to know, because once you go on a mine site and if you didn't listen, then you're not gonna know. Like, it's shit that you need to know, pretty much. So a white card can cost as little as $9 for a student and $140 as an adult, either online or in person. My experience, a good place to get your white card is Blue Dog Training in Queensland. And prices obviously vary with different companies and everything, but this is off Blue Dog Training's website. And if anyone asks me where to get it, this is the website that I will always say to go get it. So that is a very good place to go get your white card. And yes, so as little as $90 for a student or $140 as an adult. So things can get pricey getting into the mining, but it will be worth it. So that's, it's good for the price, because again, you're always going to have it. So once you got that, you're sweet. Stand 11 actually does expire. So Stand 11 is every 5 years, but it is cheaper because you do a renewal instead of, a new course. But on the unfortunate side of things, a Stand 11 is a lot more expensive than a white card. So a Stand 11 can cost up to $700 or more, but it is valid for 5 years. I'm not sure what the renewal price is, because I have not had to renew mine yet. So I got mine 2023. So I'm in it for another couple years, 2 years after the end of this year. So yeah, Stand 11 is a lot more pricey, but it is necessary, and it is very handy to know everything that's in it as well. So those are the things that you actually specifically need to be on a mine site. But now I'll get into what I recommend to put you ahead of everyone else. So that's the way I looked at it while I was getting all my tickets and everything. No, you don't necessarily need your tickets, but it is what I recommend, because if there's 2 applicants for a job, right, and you're one of them and you've got your tickets, and this one, the other person that has applied for this job, hasn't got any tickets, you are ahead of them. So again, you do not need them. They are not needed for applying for jobs, but it is very, very, very handy to have. So the tickets that I recommend is confined space and gas testing. So this is just so you can go in confined spaces like holes and tunnels and everything, and a gas testing. So you can get your confined space and gas testing ticket in a hole. And so the gas testing side of things is so you have a gas monitor, so you can hold one and walk into a tunnel, and these read the oxygen levels of this tunnel or confined space. And so that just basically, in a nutshell, if you go in there and the oxygen level isn't right, this alarm will go off on this little gas monitor, and that tells you to get the fuck out of there before, you start breathing in fumes. So that's all that is, but you do need a ticket to be able to hold one and recalibrate one and everything. So that's also handy to have, because, if you got a whole crew, everyone has their confined space, but only, 2 people have their gas testing tickets, but you need, 4 gas monitors in there. So it is handy. I'm not sure if every single confined space does it together, but I know mine did. So I'm not really sure what it is for everywhere. So your confined space and gas testing ticket can be between $300 and $600. So again, pricey, so pricey. Like, it is insane how much tickets cost, but it does help. Like, it really does. And it sucks when you want to get into mining and you're working a part-time job and you don't have excessive funds to do it, because I remember like working in a coffee shop and it was like, okay, this is expensive. But I am very lucky in the sense of having a family member that was also a trainer assessor, and they really helped me with what I was doing. So I was very, very, very lucky in that sense. And moving on from your confined space, working at heights tickets. So your working at heights ticket can cost between $250 to $400. So again, like I said, insane prices. And this basically just says it in the title, you can work at heights. So you can work in an EWP and on a ladder, I think it's above 6 meters without a railing you can work. And it's just easy to have. So if you want to work in an EWP or a scissor lift, it is also called. If you want to work in one of them, you can work in beside someone that has the EWP ticket. So you can have 2 people in the EWP, depending on the size obviously, but the ones that I worked in at least. 2 people in an EWP, one person has to have their ticket for the EWP and one person has to have their working at heights. And so also moving on from that, I would so highly recommend having an EWP ticket. Personally, I never got one because they are expensive. So what I have here is an EWP ticket under 11 meters, $400, and over 11 meters, $750. So, and I'm pretty sure it's also like a 3-day course. So again, I never did it because I ended up getting a job with the tickets that I have, but I was thinking about getting it while I was at my TA job because not many people did have it. And to be a spotter for an EWP where I worked, you also needed to have your EWP ticket. So I couldn't even spot. So it is very handy to have that as well. That's more of a go above and beyond type thing. So I would recommend that. Like, if you have the money and you have the time and you really want to get in, definitely get that as well. But like I said, personally, I never got it and I still got a job. So it is pretty much up to you, that side of things. So basically, that's all I have down for like tickets and everything. So yeah, my biggest piece of advice is literally just keep applying to everything that you see, everything. Like, even if it says 6 months experience, apply for it. Even if it says 6 months experience, apply for it. Because the job I'm currently at now, I applied for and it said, I can't remember how long it said, but it said you needed experience. And when I joined the job I'm at now, I didn't have experience in the specific machinery that they run. So when I applied, I just said, I have no experience, but I want to learn. And they were like, okay, cool. And I got the job and I still work there now and they're training me. So like, just apply for everything and never ever feel kicked back, because it is so hard to get into mining. And like I said, a lot of people will disagree with me on that one, and a lot of people will disagree with everything I've said today. But it took me a year to get into mining and I still got in through connection. So I didn't even get in by applying for a job on Seek, I got in through connections. So that's another piece of advice I have is it's not what you know, it's who you know. And, it is also a little bit of what you know, but in the main sense of things, it is not what you know, it's who you know. So if you have anyone that works in mining, your dad, your uncle, your brother, your friends, someone that you can go and talk to them and just say, hey, I really want to get, a foot in the door in the mining. Do you know of any jobs that are, coming around? Is there anywhere I can be a TA or anything? Like, talk to people, because then he or they or she can go up to their bosses and just say, hey, I know someone that's a really good worker. They'll do really well here. Do you reckon they can get a job? I have done that for people myself. At 19 years old, I have gotten other people jobs by going up to my boss and say, hey, I know someone that really wants a job here. He's really good. He's really hardworking. He'll do so good here. And then he's been like, okay, send me his resume and I'll have a look. Like, it is just that easy. I've gotten 2 people a job with me where I am now. And one of them had experience, but the other one was completely no experience at all in mining. So it is that easy. Just talk to people. Your uncle, your father, your mum, your sister, your brother, anyone, friends, anyone that has mining or is in mining, just ask them. It's the smallest thing you can do is genuinely just ask the question and just say, hey, I really want to get my foot in the door. Can you help me? And it's as simple as that. That's all I did. That's how I got into mining. Like, it is not embarrassing to get a job from someone that you know. My dad got me my first job. And people really take offense whenever I say that. It's like, okay, well, it was daddy's doing. It was daddy's money. But dad got me the job, but then I proved to stay there pretty much. So that's how I've always seen it. Yes, my father got me my first job, but I am the one that proved to them and my crew that I deserve to be there and I deserve to stay there. So my dad, I said to him, because my dad actually works in mining as well, so he's pretty high up in mining, so he helped me get all my tickets and everything, which I am so insanely lucky for. Like, I have so much appreciation for it, but he helped me every single step of the way, and he was always keeping an ear out and keeping an eye out. Again, a whole year still with my dad working in mining. But as soon as he saw a new project coming up, he knew the boss, so the project manager for my job that was happening, and he went to them and said, hey, I have 2 people that would do so well here, which is me and my partner. And yeah, that was that. He gave the boss our resumes, so he kind of just said, these 2 people, my daughter and her boyfriend, and then just gave the boss the resumes, and then the boss liked our resumes, and we did a little online interview, so we did like a Zoom interview in my room. And yeah, we were out there the next couple of weeks later. So it is seriously as simple as that. Just ask and don't be embarrassed. Like, I kind of did want to hide it from people when I first started my job, because I was like, I didn't really get this job by myself or whatever. But it is what it is. It's how I got into mining. So that's my little bit of my story of how I got into mining as well. It is nothing to be embarrassed for. But I'm pretty sure that is all I have to say today. I'll just double check. Yeah, so like I said, tickets, keep applying. Don't feel pushed back when you get denied jobs. I got denied 1,000 out of 1,001 jobs that I applied for. It is going to be a long process. It is going to be a long process. Like, that's what I've tried to say to everyone that I even know, all my friends that ask, like, oh, how is it? Can I get into it? It is hard. It is a long process. Like, once you've got the job, then you have to go for your cold ward medical and your pre-employment medical, and then once those are done, then you go out into site, then you have to do your induction, which can take, it can take up to 3 days if they want it to. Like, my first induction, I had an 8-hour online induction at home, and then I had to go to work and I had a 3-day in-person induction. So, insane. And if you don't really understand what an induction is, it basically just explains to you the site-specific rules instead of a coal mining legislation rule. So, that's what that is. But the reason they go into depth with it is because majority of it is very important to understand and know. But again, that's pretty much all I have to say today. I kind of want to keep it a little bit short still. So if you listened today and you joined me today, thank you so much. I am so excited to release both these episodes at one time so you can have a listen to both. Next week, I'm going to be talking about the truth about working in the mining industry. So a little bit of an exciting one. I'm going to be sharing some secrets and my personal stories about being in mining. So basically the goss. So I'm excited to talk about that next week. Not tomorrow. I'm not filming tomorrow. But yes, I'm excited to talk about that next week. So from now on, I'm only going to release 1 episode a week because that's what I need to be doing. But I thought, for my first episode, I'll release 2 in 1 week just so you guys have not just me talking about myself to listen to, like actually listen to how to get into mining and the tickets you need and everything. So this can also be a little bit boring today because I was more on the educational side of things, but I thought it was also important to put out there because every single message that I've ever received is asking how to get into mining. Also, before I finish up today, I do just want to point out I've had so many questions about my age. Yes, I started in the mining industry when I was 17. No, you do not have to be 18. Mining is actually 16 when you're allowed to begin in the mines. Refineries are 18. So I've had so many questions about that because honestly, I even thought it was 18 to be in mining until obviously I did it. So you can get into mining at 16, which is, trust me, so young. I was shocked when I found it out too. I was like, is that not legal? No, it is not illegal. You're allowed in the mines from 16 and refineries at 18. So I just want to point that out too because I have had so many questions about that and being like, okay, well, you're lying. Well, no. I was in the mining at 17. So I started very, very young. And I still am very young. I still have so much to learn. I still have so much to go through life. But in saying that, I have also been through quite a bit while being on a mine site. So that's what I'm going to be talking about next week. I'm going to be talking about my experiences and everything, all the little goss and all the interesting shit that people like to listen to. So tune in for that. I will see you next Friday. So thank you so much for joining me today. It was very fun talking about this. And I am loving doing this. I really am having so much fun. So again, thank you so much, and I will see you next week. Bye.